Hi. Thank you for braving the nice weather to come here. So, we started the orchestra in 2007, and we played in 2 concerts for each series. So we would play at the Castle Rock Elementary School, and then we'd go to the Grange. And then we did that at Christmas, and then we did it in March, we did it in May. The first 6 concerts, it snowed. So we're used to snow days, but last week it was just a little much. So thank you for being here. Arthur, this mic is a little hot. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. So, I know most of you did not come here today for an education. You're out of luck. So, alright, so, today we're going to learn about the hero's journey. And we had Michael and Karen worked on our little chart over here. Alright? So in this study, the name of this concert is the Hero's Journey, Superheroes Through the Ages. So in the study of stories in comparative mythology, the hero's journey is the common template of stories that involve a hero who goes on an adventure, is victorious in a decisive crisis, and comes home changed or transformed. The hero myth pattern was popularized by writer and professor of literature Joseph Campbell, who was influenced by Carl Jung's analytical psychology. In his famous book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, in 1949, he describes the narrative pattern as follows. And you can refer to our picture over here. A hero ventures forth from the world of the common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are encountered there, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow gifts on his fellow man. Now, I've simplified it just a little bit, but you're going to start seeing patterns here, and that was one of Joseph Campbell's theories, is that through the ages, there was this common story. And so it starts off, our hero doesn't have eyes, Michael? All right, he's running out of weaknesses. All right, so our eyeless hero is up there, he's got a sword and a shield. And the top part of the diagram there, he's in a normal world, okay? And basically, the 7 pieces that we're going to play today, most of them are from films, some of them are from operas. They pretty much, for the most part, follow this template. So we're going to go through for each of these. So he has his call to adventure, all right? So he's just like watching, football, and he's sad because the Broncos beat the Chiefs, but he knows there's another day, and they beat the Miami Dolphins. But there's a knock on the door, all right? And that's his call to adventure. And so sometimes they're reluctant, and sometimes they say, okay, let's go. And then he meets his mentor, all right? Then he goes into the unknown, all right? And so there's usually a threshold when he goes. So when you're watching a movie, you're going to start to see this kind of theme. Next movie you watch, if it's an adventure movie, you're going to kind of see this template. He crosses that threshold. He meets some friends and some helpers for his journey. He has some trials and tribulations. Some he passes, some he fails. Usually he goes through a learning cycle, all right? And then, I can't see because of Jim. There we go. And he gains new skills. What does that say? Graph? Oh, growth. The W got squeezed in there. All right, thank you, Michael. So then, there's this very interesting part, and most of the films actually follow this. You don't necessarily notice it, but now you will. There's a thing called the abyss or false death and rebirth. And we're going to see some instances of this in some of the popular movies that we go through. So he basically survives this false death. He has some changes, some transformations, some revelations. Usually he has a supernatural gift, and he brings that back to the known world, a changed person. All right, and that's typically the hero's journey. So we're going to see this template in all of these pieces. Now, George Lucas followed this pretty much to a T. All right, so from Star Wars, we're going to hear the Star Wars main title by John Williams. And in the 1977 film by George Lucas, has anybody not seen this? I'm going to read this recap for the one person that hasn't seen it. All right, my mother thought it was too scary, so she never saw it. All right, so if you've never seen Star Wars, Rebel leader Princess Leia is apprehended by the Empire, and our hero, Luke Skywalker, inadvertently acquires the stolen plans to the Death Star by way of R2-D2 and sets out to rescue her while learning the ways of a metaphysical power known as the Force from Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. All right, so following this template here in this story, the call to action is given by Obi-Wan. The threshold is when they go to that vile place of Mos Eisley, the spaceport where they have the bar. That's his first threshold on his journey. All right, and then Obi functions as his mentor, and he's assisted by Han and Chewie down there into the unknown, and then as well as C-3PO and R2-D2. Now he's challenged by Darth Vader and his minions, the Stormtroopers. Now his false death. Any guesses on what his false death would be? Do you remember when he was in the trash compactor and he went under the water? They're like, oh, what happened? So thinking about the story as this applies to the first movie, I was like, okay, that's kind of a false death. That's Abyss. They were kind of at the lowest level of the Death Star. All right? And then ultimately he is transformed. So before he comes back out, he changes into a Jedi warrior. And after blowing up the Death Star, he returns to normalcy. So there always has to be a return to normalcy. And anybody remember what the return to normalcy was? Very last scene? Any guesses? It was the ceremony scene, right? And they come back for the ceremony, so that's the return to normalcy. All right, so that's the hero's journey applied to Star Wars, and we're going to hear the main title now. is a Mozart piece. If you ever saw Amadeus, this piece was very pronounced in that movie. So this is from an opera called The Abduction from the Seraglio, and it's based on a 1781 book by Christoph Bretzmann. And Mozart's opera premiered in 1782. Now the plot concerns the attempt of the hero Belmonte, assisted by his servant Padrillo, to rescue his beloved Costanza from the Seraglio, or the Turkish palace of the king Pasha Selim. So now over here on our chart, in this story, the call is given by the abduction of the hero Belmonte's love. So he's like, okay, I gotta go get this lady, and her name was Costanza, and she was abducted by pirates. Now the palace, when he enters the palace, that functions as the threshold. He's assisted by his friend Padrillo. Now there's no mentor in this story, but his challenge is offered by the pirates, the Janissaries, which are the infantry soldiers of the king, and of the king himself, the Pasha himself. Now, the story was that Belmonte's dad, I'll just call him Bob, that Bob and the king, Pasha, they were always at war against each other. So once the Pasha found out that Belmonte was his enemy's son, he's like, well, I could torture you, but I'm going to be a nice guy and not do it. So the threat of the torture functions as a potential abyss for Belmonte. And actually, Belmonte isn't transformed, but the king is transformed as he decides that his best revenge is to let his enemy's son, Belmonte, live. And then in the end, they are set free and normalcy returns. This is The Abduction from the Seraglio, the overture by Wolf, we'll just call him Mozart. All right. You know who it is. All right. All right. Now, our next story is also a familiar one. Put it on my notes. Here we go. Okay. Now, have most of you seen Raiders? Who has not seen Raiders? You're too embarrassed to say. Okay. So, for you who are too embarrassed to say, Raiders of the Lost Ark from 1981 by Steven Spielberg, Philip Kaufman, and George Lucas introduces us to Indiana Jones, a globe-trotting archaeologist vying with Nazi German forces to recover the long-lost Ark of the Covenant, which is said to make an army invincible. Teaming up with his tough, former romantic interest, Marion Ravenwood, Jones races to stop rival archaeologist Dr. Renee Belloc from guiding the Nazis to the Ark and its power. Now, turning to Jamie, the story. There we go, Jamie, thank you. Okay, now in this story, who's our hero? Indiana Jones. Okay, now when we get to the last piece, you guys have to make all the answers here, because you all have been educated. That's going to be the final, so work with me. All right, so he's given the call to action by Army intelligence officers, and he's doing his normal teaching thing, and then they show up, right? Okay, now the first threshold, do you remember where his first adventure was? Remember he went to Nepal, and there was the bar there. So he goes to Marion's bar. So Marion's bar is his first trek into the unknown. Okay, so he crosses in there. And we find out there that his mentor was Marion's dad, Abner Ravenwood. Now, Indy is helped by the Egyptian excavator Salah and the museum curator, Marcus Brody. And he's challenged by Renee Belloc and the cast of Nazis, including the evil Tot. Now, do you remember when he was physically at his lowest, when he was in the abyss? Do you remember where he was? Who said snakes? Snakes, yes. So he was in the map room, right? And that was the lowest part. So that's the functioning of him in the abyss. So the Indy's placement into the map room functions as the abyss, and then he's transformed by, can I go a bit further in the movie? He's transformed by his experience with the Ark, and he returns to normalcy at the end of the story when he goes to Washington, D.C. Remember the final scene was the big warehouse, right? So we're back to normalcy. So we follow the hero's journey. All right, so this is The Raiders March by John Williams. Isolde, Isolde, by Richard Wagner. Okay, now, the story of the opera was based on a romance book from Gottfried von Strasberg in the 12th century. Wagner's opera premiered in 1865. Now, the hero, Tristan, goes to Ireland, so he's there, he's called an adventure, and he has to go to ask the hand of the Princess Isolde for his uncle, King Mark of Cornwall. So he has to go, this is very Game of Thrones, right? So he has to go get the lady to bring back for his uncle. On the return, the two mistakenly drink a love potion. And this happens every time. All right, so prepared for the king, but those two fall deeply in love. Now, after many adventures, they make peace with the king, but he still marries Isolde because he has to. Okay, so Tristan, he's upset. So they were in Ireland and England, so he has to go to northern France, which is Britain. All right, and he's like, okay, I'm just going to solve it. And Tristan is severely wounded there by Malo, and Malo is, he is the underling of the king. Now, Tristan is tended by his attendant Curwenal, and having found out that Tristan, okay, so now Tristan is hurt, all right? And so Curwenal says, hey, Isolde, your old lover, he's hurt, if you want to come talk to him. But Tristan has already died, it's very influenced, when she appears. Now, King Mark, you think he'd be angry, but he's like, okay, I understand what's going on. He shows up because he found out about the love potion that was meant for him. Now, at that moment, Isolde decides to take her life. Okay, but the audience, after sitting through 4 hours of this, they're like, okay, I'm ready to die. But Isolde, she wakes up and she says, she has a long aria called The Love Death, which we're not performing, we're just in prelude, even though it's very beautiful. All right, and then she joins Tristan in the afterlife. Okay, so, again, just a real mess. Okay, so now, Tristan has been called to transport Isolde, to be wed to King Mark. Now, the ship functions as the threshold. All right, so now we're into the unknown. Tristan is mentored by his buddy Cornwall, and then Isolde is assisted by her servant, Reingain, and they are challenged by King Mark and his underling, Nalat, as well as just this entire messy political situation. Now, the abyss here is Tristan's actual death, and Isolde's love for him is the transformational point that leads to her death. So now you have two people in the abyss. Now, how are we going to finish this up with a happy ending? So in the final aria, she awakens. She describes in the aria, the love-death aria, her vision of Tristan, and then she dies again. So her return to normalcy. It's very dark, I'm telling you, very interesting. Now, as an aside, when I was reading through all this, in the 150-year history of this opera, there were at least 3 guys that sang the Tristan part that died unexpectedly. So, if you're thinking about singing this part, just have second thoughts, all right? Because you don't want to, you may not come out of the abyss. All right, so, yes, it is the party part. All right, so this features our low strings, and just think really sad thoughts, and you'll really understand this piece. All right, this is the prelude. It's very beautiful. Prelude from Tristan and Isolde, one of the most difficult operas to put on by Richard Wagner. Very nice. Okay. Now, we move along to 2001: A Space Odyssey. The piece we're going to be playing is also Orchestra, and this is also by Richard Strauss. Now, the 1969 movie by Stanley Kubrick was based on a 1951 short story by Arthur C. Clarke. An imposing black monolith provides a connection between the past and the future. When Dr. Dave Bowman and other astronauts are sent on a mysterious mission, their ship's computer system, HAL, begins to display increasingly strange behavior, leading up to a tense showdown between man and machine that results in a mind-bending trek through space and time. Hey, who's seen 2001? Raise hands. Okay, good. All right. Now, the film ends with astronaut Dave going through the Stargate. So imagine this is 1969, right? So it's kind of just like space story, all right? But it started with a bunch of, we'll just call them apes, and they're looking at a monolith. And, okay, that's weird, Stanley. Okay, now there's another story. Okay, they found this weird monolith on the moon. Okay, and now they cut to the Dave and Hal. All right, then things get really weird. Okay, so this. So Dave ends up going through a Stargate, which is like doing drugs. All right, now, watching himself age into death from the comfort of a really kind of weird 1969 neoclassical bedroom. And then he gets weird. He gets reborn as a fetus floating above the earth, and that's called a star child, in an orb. All right, so does that kind of just, if you've seen 1969, or Space Odyssey, that kind of describe it? Yeah. All right, so what were you saying? Okay, so now, in the story, the discovery of the monolith on the moon provides the call to action. All right, the threshold to adventure is the spaceship, and Dave is mentored by Dr. Floyd. Now, astronaut Frank is his helper, and Hal, the computer, provides the challenge to the two astronauts. Okay, now, there's an actual, like, death and rebirth, that's the Stargate in the abyss, and then Dave wakes up, literally transformed into a space baby. Okay, now, the scene of the space baby floating around the Earth brings us back to normalcy. If you feel like you saw this in a movie theater, you'd be like, what did I just see? Okay, so, now, during post-production, Kubrick chose to abandon composer Alex North's music in favor of classical pieces, which he had earlier chosen to tempt North's score. Now, if you do remember, there's a famous scene where the space wheel is turning, and he uses the Strauss waltz, da-da-da-dee-da-da. All right, so that's a very famous scene. All right, but unfortunate for North, he did not learn that his score had been abandoned for the temp music until he saw the film, so you can imagine he was probably distracted. All right, so, also Sprach's air through stuff. This is a lot of fun, and you're gonna have a good time. Okay, here we go. Jennifer's already here. All right. Okay. Now, it was in the Barbie movie. All right, so I should ask them. I should do Barbie movie for the hero's journey. All right. Okay, now, this is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, let me get my notes. Okay, so I roughly counted up that we have done probably like around 550 to 600 different pieces in our 16-year history. This piece has got to be like one of the top 5. All right? Now, it's a most difficult, yes. That was a key word. Okay. But you will be distracted by Jason and his funny hat. All right. So Jason is my friend from the Renaissance Festival. We do a lot of comedy together, and I was thinking, a prankster? Jason. All right, so that is Mr. Jason Tonis, all right, with his funny alpine hat. Now, I'm not going to walk you through this circle because Jason is actually going to narrate us through the circle, and you're going to kind of see as Till goes around the circle. Okay, now this is based on a 15th century German folktale. All right, always very uplifting. Strauss's tone poem premiered in Cologne, Germany in 1895. So you're going to hear Jason talk about the premiere here. For the most part, Strauss's musical story follows the hero's journey. Now today, the story will be told by our narrator, Jason Thomas. And I do, so you're going to hear this theme, all right? And it is Till's theme, and that features Fred on his funny little clarinet. Stand up, Fred, show us the funny little clarinet. All right? So you're going to hear the theme on that, and then you're going to hear the theme also from Steve Wilkins. Steve, stand up. All right. And Steve's going to play that on the French horn, and you're going to hear this kind of dabbled around. All right, so this is Till Eulenspiegel's Merry Pranks by Richard Strauss with narration by Jason Thomas. And I also would like to thank Melissa. All right, she put together the slideshow. So also to distract you from anything that's going on with the orchestra, even though it's going to be amazing. You have Jason, and then Jason basically going to narrate this, which we stole this, right? Some Germans made it, so we would give credit to the Germans who made it. All right. That was really nice. Okay, here we go.
Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a young man named Till Eulenspiegel. The rising theme represents Till's youthful optimism, which we will call Till the Adventurer. So Till takes 3 tries to gain this balance. First, he tries to start on the second beat, then the third, and off he goes. isn't just a young adventurer, he's also a prankster. Listen again to the descending clarinet theme. These two themes form the basis of the work. Exact story that was running through Strauss's head. Thanks to some notes in his score, we have a good idea. Here we can hear Strauss setting the scene of Till in the marketplace. The chaos swirls away as he rides out of the village. You can almost hear Till planning his next move, laughing about the whole affair. Emboldened by his first prank, Till dresses as a priest, preaching earnestness and morals to the townsfolk while pocketing the offerings. The basses, however, betray his pious facade. Till's pathetic pleas of empathy are met by muted trumpets and horns. They foreshadow the judgments to come. But Till pays no attention. adventurer theme, but sadly, the women are not interested. Bitter by his rejection, Till's critics take the opportunity to mock him. Strauss liked to include his musical critics into his tone poems, most notably in Ein Heldenleben. They relentlessly hound him his entire life. Saying of his work that the music fascinates is true, but it is in part an awful fascination, void of aesthetic charm. woods, he struts about, and we then hear Till the Adventurer. Noticed by the gods, and the chase ensues. The gods capture Till, and soon he must face a trial for all his foolish pranks. Till's fate is sealed. He will march to the pillory and face his punishment. Thus concludes the tale of Till Eulenspiegel and his merry pranks. Some say his spirit ascended to heaven, while others swear they see him hiding in the hills, waiting on his next prank.
If you heard us the very first time we rehearsed it, you'd be like, wow. Okay, Jason, thank you so much. Soloists, thank you so much. All right, wonderful, wonderful job. All right, So, I would like to thank each of you for joining us this evening for our Hero's Journey, Superheroes Through the Ages concert. Now, this is our first concert of our 16th season and our 65th concert overall. We'd like to thank all of you who made donations as you entered. We'd also like to thank our concert master, right there, Tracy Ann Sprouse, our librarian, Emily Van Cleve, very good, and our stage manager, Kurt Harris. Thank you, Kurt, for his valuable help in putting this concert together. I'd also like to thank Arthur Larson, he's back there in the back, all right, for running sound today. Now, because we had to delay, we had to get a handful of subs. So we have Miss Jessica on trumpet. Everybody say hi, Jessica. There we go. We have Gilly Sexton on percussion. There she is back there. We have Mr. John Morgan on tuba. And we have Miss Penny Harris on clarinet. Thank you, Penny, for joining us today. Now, we'd like to thank our longtime sponsor, Core Electric Association, and the town of Castle Rock, as well as real estate agent Ashley Simpson and my State Farm agent, David and Kate Topolicki. As always, thanks go to Reverend Matt Franks, Teresa Keppel, and the First United Methodists for their patience in hosting the orchestra. We're going on like 15 and a half years, so it's just been amazing. We'd also like to thank all of you in the orchestra who've made contributions to the music and operations budget this season. And most of all, we'd like to thank you, the audience, for attending today. And we hope to see you here at our second concert of the 16th season, which will not be delayed in any way, shape, or form. All right? Okay? At 3 p.m., no, there's no hope. No, there's no hope. All right, it will happen at 3 p.m. Sunday, December 17th, that's the week before Christmas, 2023. Now, because we were delayed, we are getting close to Veterans Day. So I wanted to take this opportunity to mention and acknowledge our veterans. So I'm going to list off here some veterans that were added to our list, and then we will have a moment of silence and taps. So first off, my uncle, John Earl Rose Jr., who was in the Army, Jim Fallon, who was in the Navy, Dave Hadley, who was in the Navy, Dana Searay, or Sire, U.S. Army, Henry de Pasquale, U.S. Army, Don Frostholm, who was in the Army, Christine Reed, Air Force, Sergeant Major Melvin James Ross of the Marine Corps, Lieutenant Pat Chisholm in memoriam from the U.S. Army, Jennifer Brush of the Air Force, Mitch Brush, Air Force, Patrick Brush, Air Force, Hy Ibsen from the Army, Sergeant John P. Turner, U.S. Army, Ron Hamiston of the Marines, Martin Orla of the Army, Mel Dombrock, Air Force, Andy Bader, U.S. Air Force, Ashley DeJong, U.S. Air Force, Bob Hart, Army, Roscoe Nelson, Air Force, and Corporal Alan Sprouse, U.S. Marine, First Recon. So a moment of silence. It's very beautiful. Thank you. All right, so we're going to have somebody step in and talk to you about The Lord of the Rings. That's you.
Nothing like preparation for me. Apparently I'm supposed to educate you, but... Our last piece is The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings by Howard Shore. Based on the 1954 book by J.R.R. Tolkien, the epic film trilogy was directed by Peter Jackson. In the first story of the trilogy, the future of civilization rests in the fate of the One Ring, which has been lost for centuries. Powerful forces are unrelenting in their search for it, but fate has placed it in the hands of a young hobbit named Frodo Baggins, which was played by Elijah Wood, who inherits the ring and steps into legend. A daunting task lies ahead for Frodo when he becomes the ring bearer, to destroy the one ring in the fires of Mount Doom, where it was forged. The story follows the hero's journey quite closely. So before we play the piece, let's have our final test. See what I mean? Who has seen the movie? Oh, we're gonna get about 50%. Okay. In The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, what was the call to action? Yes. You might help us pass. All right. Frodo acquiring the ring from Gandalf. I think I'm going too fast. I will speak slower. What item provided the supernatural assistance? You can't answer anymore, you know all the answers. Ring. Oh, can you tell I'm like used to little kids? The ring, yes. All right. Where was the first threshold? Yes, leaving the Shire. Who was the mentor? Gandalf. Huh? That's true. There was one more. Who were the helpers? Example, fellowship. Oh, how are you supposed to remember all these names? Aragorn, Strider, I'll just give them to you. Gimli, the dwarf, Legolas, however you say it. Merry, Pippin, and Sam, the hobbits, how do you even say that? Boromir. See, I should not be up here, you should be up here. All right, I did watch it, just not nearly as closely and obsessively as others. All right, other helpers were, I used to do this to me every time. Arwen, Elrond, and Galadriel. The elf people. Okay, the ears. All right, who were the challengers? You guys are smart. Good job. I'm not even going to go with that list. What was the abyss or his false death? Nice job, Christopher. Yes, he got stabbed by the Witch King on the leather top. I remember that part. All right, in the third and final film, where was the location of Frodo's transformation? And where did he get the ring destroyed? Mount Doom. And where did they all return at the end? The Shire. Okay, did I go slow enough? Okay, and here is Frodo. You have to see his feet.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, here's my version. All right, apparently I'm quite hot and much redder than normally am. So I'm going to take this jacket off. And the end of this piece features young